So welcome to today's webcast, and this is the Equitrans Midstream transformation story. If you have any questions, can you put them into the questions section, and then we'll look at them at the end of the session. So the star of our show today is Tobie. So Tobie, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. My name is Tobie Engel. I'm the Director of Financial Systems at Equitrans Midstream in Pittsburgh, PA. We have a sunny day today. It is in our afternoon, not quite evening. I have been with the company just about 20 years. I'm just a couple days shy. I've been with the company for a long time and have had many great experiences in my company, doing many different roles, wearing many different hats, which all came together for me to be able to oversee the implementation of our Oracle platform, and I now maintain the system as the steward of the system. So that's me. John, if you can introduce yourself.
You bet. Hello, everybody. My name is John Crome. I'm the Executive Director for Oil and Gas for Oracle inside North America Apps. I'm here in Houston. I myself come out of industry myself with 34 years in mostly upstream and midstream roles, in addition to some SIs and some global opportunities abroad as well. So it's fantastic to be here.
And my name's Deborah Lilly, and I work for Inoapps, and very privileged to be hosting this today. And so first of all, John, would you like to talk to us about some of the challenges in the industry?
You bet. So I'll talk about these with a bit of a wider aperture, because I do think that these have an effect on companies like Equitrans and the technologies that people like Oracle provide. Now, the first two on the left have a role clearly in the oil markets, but this last year, particularly with Russia's invasion of Ukraine, we've seen this now affect gas markets like never before. And the geopolitical uncertainty, of course, is causing havoc for traders. Geopolitical uncertainty always creates a bit of uncertainty, and you see that in oil prices quickly. But today, gas is now different because most of Western Europe has stopped taking Russian gas, and Europe is not prepared to live without gas for quite some time. So this is a very different situation that's created a nascent LNG market in the Gulf Coast. And that doesn't work all on its own. Companies like EQT feeding companies like Equitrans now have a much different outlook because of the LNG that is going to be required to supply Western Europe in lieu of the Russian gas. It has now created a new market for North American natural gas. And global demand has also changed. This geopolitical uncertainty is different in that crude is going in different directions and has been reallocated like never before. And with Russian gas no longer going to Western Europe, it does have an effect on gas consumption as well. This comes at a very strange time because most of Western Europe is trying to get off of hydrocarbon burning power generation, and they're finding they're just not prepared to do it yet. And natural gas has got a long runway in Western Europe until they are ready. Again, game changing. So for companies that thought they only had a 10, 20, 30-year lifespan of profitability and real intensity, I think the time horizon has now grown, and investments are going to have to follow with that kind of outlook. The ones on the right are factors that are happening throughout the oil and gas industry, not just for Equitrans, not just for midstream, but everybody, upstream, midstream, downstream, and oil field service. Some of this has been going on for some time. Some people call the middle one the big crew change or the war on talent, but there just aren't enough people coming into the industry, generally speaking. And there are a group of people, dare I say, more mature and wiser folks that are leaving or getting close to. And the imbalance is getting bigger and bigger. More people leaving, less people coming. So squeezing more out of talent is absolutely important. And I think Tobie's going to tell us a little bit about some of her experience is on that. And there are some technology solutions, although not only technology solutions for that. Carbon footprints now is a bit complicated because it comes in two forms. The first one is that current enterprises are always looking to reduce their carbon footprint. SEC regulations and good stewardship are driving this. Stakeholders are driving this. So there are things that have technical solutions to help current enterprises do this. In some cases, it feels like a restraining factor. Now, there's a second domain here, which it's a liberating factor that has now created a whole new cottage industry or sub-industry of low carbon businesses, new enterprises coming up from scratch, whether through JVs or equity money, now getting into LNG, hydrogen, wind, solar, methanol, ammonia, you name it. So this is now, there's a burgeoning number of companies that feel like a startup, but once they go to first gas or first power, they're going to be billion-dollar enterprises very quickly. And the last one is the stubborn effect of inflation on all costs. This could be on project development and capital spending, things like line pipe, oil country tubular goods, EPC services, the list goes on. And it could be other services as well. Some of that is of our own making, in that it's oil and gas prices that are contributing to this, but there's a stubbornness to this that just isn't going away and tracking oil and gas price as cleanly as it has before. And again, there are some technical solutions here to help companies better identify and spend their money wisely. So I look forward to hearing what Tobie has to say, and I hope that you can tease out some of these factors that she'll be describing in her own implementation.
So thank you, John, for telling us about some of the industry challenges. If I hand over to Tobie now, tell us about your organisation itself and how you fit in there.
From an implementation perspective, I'll give you a little background on how we got to where we were. We were part of a larger parent company by the name of EQT, and we were spun off in November of 18 as the parent child who became our own. As part of that, we needed to stand ourselves on our own from our systems perspective. We had some licensing borrowing from EQT that we had in place for a limited time period. And so we needed to go down the road of standing up our own systems. Lucky for us, we had already done an assessment company-wide recently between SAP, Oracle, and Workday. We had already decided that we were between SAP and Oracle. So we did a deeper dive right around separation to determine which was the better fit from our organization. We were historically a JDE shop with a number of what I'll call boutique small systems supporting the organization. And we looked at the two systems. It really was a win for us with Oracle, the fact that the whole system is within one cloud versus SAP has multiple clouds that are linked together. That didn't fit our footprint as well. We really wanted to go to the smaller impact and the smaller input. We've been dealing with integrations for decades, and we wanted to try to get rid of as many as possible. So we moved into the Oracle suite. It was the choice for us. We started early 19 in our implementation. We selected Inoapps as our SI to help us through the path. Over the project, we did it in 3 phases. We ended up putting in 32 modules and retiring 14 systems, 15 now to date. We did that. We went live with the first phase right before COVID. We went live Monday and all got sent home Thursday. So that was a lot of fun doing an implementation during a pandemic. But we did the implementation, wrapped it up with all phases by the end of 2020. And basically, if Oracle owns it, we drank the Kool-Aid, we bought it, everything but CRM, we own it all. We largely, we own the whole financial systems product with AP, AR, as well as PPM and projects. We also own, we ended up bolting on P6 from a project management perspective. We own all of the HR suite, including the internal employee, attorney, internal HR team, and the external recruiting process. We own the supply chain suite from a full body, including negotiations, contracts management, the full picture of supply chain, punch out catalogs, the full body of work, supplier portal. And then up in the EPM suite, we use EPBCS, so planning, budgeting, forecasting, taxes, consolidation, account reconciliations, close, and then enterprise data management. So we own pretty much everything from Oracle, and we've had a great implementation, and we're just happy to speak about our process. And anybody who's looking, we're happy to help talk about what options are out there and how it worked for us.
So if I go back, Tobie, so you said that you split off in 2019?
Yes, we started. Yes.
And you went live with your first module when?
March of 2020,
Yeah.
right before COVID. And so when we went live with base HR, core internal supply chain, all of the financial suites, consolidation, account reconciliation. We actually put in the AAC security module, enterprise data management. That all went in the first sweep.
And I know, if I remember rightly, that first suite was, you had a very, let's say, vanilla finance in JDE. You didn't use projects or anything. And then it was get everything that we need over in phase one, and then start building out how you needed to run it for your new business. So in your JDE, you weren't using projects, that's right? Oh, have we lost Tobie?
Yeah, I got muted again. Sorry about that.
That's okay. That's okay. I was thinking, oh, I've heard this story, but I don't know if I can do it on my own. I was just saying that in JDE, you were just using finance, you weren't using projects. So it was
Yes.
move what you had and then build out.
Yeah, we were using PowerPlant for all of our planning, forecasting, budgeting, both on the capital and the expense side. And we were using it for our property taxes, income taxes, and all of our asset life. We've moved most of that over to Oracle. We still use them for property tax and income tax at this point, but everything else is over in Oracle. And it's a huge success story. Specifically, I can speak to both sides. On our capital side, our capital forecasting, we do self-construct assets. It's a big part of our business. We've cut 2 weeks out of that process going to Oracle. So our analysis process has been gone from 3 weeks down to 1 week, which is huge. The smart view ability, the ability to really get into the data. If you've ever worked with the treasury team, I mean, they love data and they love getting into that world. And the ability for them to slice and dice straight out of the system is fantastic. Moving over to the expense side, one of my big, huge wins really is implementing the HR suite. And having an HR suite that's fully integrated with our full system, not only does it help us when people get promoted or transferred or leave the company and you need to deal with those invoices in the procure to pay world, but it also helps you in your forecasting world. Now we have real-time forecasting on an employee level for salary purposes, which is admittedly most of our cost. And so we have real-time activity around that in our forecasting every month. And the quality of the data has improved. And having the visibility, but really being able to see everything in there has been fantastic.
So a couple of things I'd like to visit on that. So, your job title says financial systems, and you looked after the HCM as well. And I know that you loved it for the reasons you just gave. But I remember you talking to a prospective customer who is now a customer in Las Vegas, and they were saying, oh, we would like to do finance and projects and whatever. And he goes, why aren't you doing HCM? And it was just, you could be the Oracle salesperson. Pleased to say they are currently looking at it, but it was, that everybody in finance that uses the system is an employee. So
yeah,
having that data together just makes so much sense.
Yeah, that whole integration picture, that whole picture of buying the ERP and really integrating the full setup and the full structure, it's one of those things, the gifts that keeps on giving when you realize what you can accomplish with your data. And now that we're getting into things like ESG reporting, having our employees listed in there and being able to use the system for learning and training and being able to report on that is really just a huge win for us. The system keeps being invested into by the employees, and the employees appreciate the information we can get out of it. And that really comes from having a full system that you can look at from beginning to end across all your businesses and all your activity.
So a large part of that, when doing the design, was around your chart of accounts. So it's very easy to take what you had before and just carry on with that. But I know that you spent a lot of time looking at what did you need for yourselves, what did you need for legislation, etc., and really worked on a chart of accounts that would give you all of that information as easily as possible.
Yeah, so when our original JDE environment was set up in 1995 for a small LDC. That's what we were at the time. Now, our company's very lucky. We grew very big. We grew into EQT. We were primarily an oil and gas, or primarily an oil driller or a natural gas driller company. And so the GL was really structured for them. So when we split off, we really had the opportunity to develop a system for ourselves. And we took that opportunity. So our chart of accounts was 10,000 strong when we started with JDE, and we ended up going live with around 750. It's grown and it flexes a little bit from there, but that's really where we got our chart of accounts. And we were able to incorporate into our chart of accounts our reporting needs, not only for GAAP and GAAP accounting, but also for FERC reporting. And so that facilitates our, Schedule 2 items, and doing all that reporting that is another burden on our financial team. And we do consider the system a financial system because it is our SOX system. We do have SOX data across the enterprise, and therefore it is our financial system, even though it might support and operate for the whole company.
And you mentioned before, and I'm glad you've listened, because when we were talking about this before, and you said, oh, I managed to strip 2 weeks out of my capital planning cycle. And I thought that was brilliant. It's really good. It's a measurable outcome. And I said, and how long did that process take before? Now, you did say here you'd gone from 3 weeks to 1 week. That is an amazing achievement for something that has to be done so regularly and is so important to your organization. That's a massive achievement.
And we've really seen those benefits all over the system. It's interesting because and I am in finance, and I love to take about the HR area because I think it's so powerful for us. Before COVID, our HR team was largely paper. We had employee files, and we handled everything by paper. Going through COVID really forced us to become more electronic and become more, paperless, which, is good. It's really good. But having the implementation there was just there at the right time. We were able to start using those employee journeys in the system and really driving the employees to the self-service electronic version. And so we didn't have so much paper going on in our world. But that has been huge. Some of the benefits that we've come out and that we've now realized over time have just been fantastic. The fact that our employees can now interact within our system has also opened up other windows around hiring and being able to hire across the United States, not just in Pittsburgh anymore. It's really benefited from a lot of other areas. Going into supply chain, now that we have the negotiation tools and the bidding tools that we have in there and the supplier portals, again, we're not going in to get our invoices. They're using the supplier portal. We're negotiating our contracts virtually. It's really just everywhere we turn, we're seeing enhancements and improvements. And the company's recognizing that. I have at all times 40 enhancements on my to-do list for the company, and the teams just keep bringing more because they see the investment that they're putting into the system is turning out rewards for them, not just hard rewards, but also those soft rewards where they're doing less manual work and then giving them the opportunity to really analyze the data and turn into those analysts that really can be beneficial for the company in general.
So that I know you said that lockdown started the minute you'd finished phase 1, and you did this over 3 phases, but this was helping already your organization to pivot to being at arm's length and having to and being able to do things self-service that previously you would have had to have done manually. So how was finishing those projects during COVID like for the team?
Well, it was definitely a challenge. I will say that my company is definitely I should really, words matter. My company was very, very person-to-person focused. We spent a lot of time before going live. We did lunch and learns. We did little demos that we put on our SharePoint site. We did running on the TVs in the cafeteria all day long, running little demos. We really tried to push the system out to folks before we started. Change management is huge when we're going through an ERP implementation. And we really tried to we had change champions. But then, so it wasn't the first time people saw the system when we went live, but what we really missed out on was, we expected folks to have their neighbor and be able to say, hey, how do I code that invoice again? Or how do I turn in my time card? And we really didn't have that benefit because of COVID. Everybody was sent home. It was forced sent home. So we ended up getting a lot of tickets really quickly, more than we expected. But thankfully, we had a really good partnership with our SI, that being Inoapps. When we called them up about 30 days out from go live and said, hey, we've got a problem. We've got too many tickets. And they were able to lend us some resources to be help desk resources, if you will, the first couple months to get us over that bridge. So that was definitely a challenge, but they definitely helped us with that. And then going into the other modules, I know the last module we put in was the PPM and P6 area. And I said to our president multiple times, I'm okay being virtual, but if you get to the projects module and you want me to do that virtual, it's not going to work. I said that to her probably, I don't know, 4 Steercos in a row. And then we got there and we just started working on it, and it worked out good. We got, Inoapps really helped us learn how to be more virtual and how to be more virtual. And we learned a lot about Teams, but we got through it. And what we ended up with was a very solid product. So it proves that you can do that all virtually and really get an end product that works for the team. It just went so well. And, we thank our SI for that. And our team was willing to accept it too. That's huge.
So I think one of the things that you missed out on that you didn't mention is, projects are hard. Implementations are hard, and it's great to be together and recognize how far you've come. So, with going into lockdown immediately, it's how do you celebrate that success is difficult as well. Not just getting on with it, but celebrating is hard when you're remote. Do you just stop having a Teams meeting, or do you have a Teams meeting and raise a glass? It's a difficult thing. You said that you had a burning bridge. You had we were borrowing licenses from your ex-parent company, and you had a time scale by which you had to move to a new system, and then you had the constraints of COVID. But all that said, what advice would you give to an organization that perhaps didn't have those timescales and they could move as slowly as they wanted to? What would your advice be to them?
I would still say move as quickly as you're comfortable moving forward. It is a lot of change for your organization. And it depends what system you come from. If you come from something that's very similar, maybe it's not as much. For us, it was a significant change. We had been on JDE for a long time, since 1995. And so it was a significant change and feel a touch for us. Going to one system versus multiple system was a big change for us. So it was definitely, a change. Change fatigue is a real thing. So if you're going to extend your project out, I know I'd heard ERP on-prem system implementations going on for 5, 6, 7, 10 years. The change fatigue is real, and it will drain on your team. So I would say still go as quickly as you feel comfortable going, because it's never going to feel comfortable. It's always going to be scary doing something like this. And it is kind of a leap of faith. You need to find that partner that you're comfortable working with. We found Inoapps, who really from the beginning have just been a solid and supportive partner, but they're going to be with you forever. So make sure you're comfortable with that team, because they are going to be your roommate, riding this experience and journey with you side by side. So I would say do it as fast as possible, though, because change fatigue is a real thing, and you will hit it eventually.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions here. So Olivia, can you see the questions there? Otherwise, I have got a text with them from Janie, but can you see the questions that have come through?
Yes, I can. We have one that says, do you integrate Oracle Time and Labor to projects module? If so, how is that process working?
We actually do an overhead module. So we do a overhead allocation process. We collect in the time and labor, we collect their stats around projects so that we can use that to analyze for future allocations, but we do a straight out allocation process. So we don't do direct billing.
And are you using Oracle Payroll?
We do not use Oracle Payroll. We do time and labor or full-time sheets. We do the full calculation and rate base inside our system. And then we export out to a third-party payroll provider that cuts our checks for us and sends us back a net post-taxes journal entry to go into our GL for accounting purposes. So we do everything except for actually cut our checks. They do that for us.
And so my comment on that is people say, oh, you're not using payroll, you're not getting the information, but actually all of your allowances, all of your deductions, all of that is done, it's still done inside the Oracle. It's just sending that file out for the deductions that happens or cutting the check as much as you like can be done in them.
To be fair, they do our taxes. They do our tax calculation. We validate it, but they do our tax calculation. But in general, all of our absence, our vacation, our sick, all that activity is handled and maintained in Oracle. We're just sending the gross number over to them, and they do the tax calculation for us. So
we have another question about rentals, or if you're in the rentals business, and were you using JDE rental solution or a third-party system?
We actually still use a third-party system. We have very few rentals. We actually made a concerted effort when we split off to buy most of our rentals so that we didn't have to deal with that, to be honest with you. It's less than 50 rentals, I believe, at this point. So.
Okay, and have you mapped that into Oracle Cloud? That's the second part.
We map the results into Oracle Cloud, but we don't, again, the calculation for all that activity is done outside.
Okay.
It's so small.
We have another, oh.
Yeah, it's just so
small
how they're converting it, so.
Yeah. Another question, do you integrate OTL to projects?
That's the whole, we do an overhead and labor allocation. I should say the employee names are mapped over to there because we do use the employee names in, project management, who's allowed to see the project and that activity. But actual direct rates and direct labor, we do not allocate over, we do not feed over, we do overhead allocations.
And there's another question about, did you implement any of Oracle's analytics tools, such as Analytics Cloud or Fusion Analytics Warehouse?
So if my Oracle Cloud rep was on here, he would see the tear that comes down my eye right now. Unfortunately, Analytics Cloud came out after we went live, so it is not in my current licensing, but we are actually currently heavily investigating into it because in particular, I think the supply chain analytics just looks fantastic for managing inventory and negotiation. I'm very interested in it. We're also looking at it for HR and GL as well, but for me, that supply chain analytics looks really nice.
And then we had another question, sorry, about test tools. Are you using any third-party automated test tools for testing?
So for testing from a patch perspective, we don't do our own testing. We have about a lot of test scripts that we run through. We have a pretty large footprint in the system. Inoapps, we actually have kept a relationship with them as our managed service provider. And in part of that managed services, they also do all of our patch testing for the EPM environments monthly and the ERP environment quarterly. So they run through all of our test scripts for us. They do, I believe, Deborah, don't make sure I'm correct, hold me honest here. I believe you have automated tools and you can do it manually. We actually prefer to be on the manual tools. That's where we are right now. We've thought about switching over, but for now we're continuing to request to be on the manual testing process.
Yeah,
And
we have.
Sorry, the questions keep coming. Do you want me to stop and we'll answer them after the webinar?
Stop for a minute, Janie, and then we'll come back to that. Okay, let's stop for a minute. So we do have some testing tools, but like Tobie says, actually we prefer well-written scripts and manual because one of the things that the cloud does is the continuous innovation, and that was something that I was going to ask Tobie about. It's fantastic story. Listen to everything that ETRN have achieved from this implementation, but you don't stop at that point. You know, when you've gone live, you don't stop. So Tobie's already talked about looking at analytics. Even phase 3 was adding P6 in there. So even if you've got perfect scripts at the end, when you go live, they are always going to be growing as well as you add more and more of the innovation that keeps coming along. So have you any other plans? Yeah, they do.
It's so powerful to get the patches every quarter. Now, I will tell you that I was super nervous. Being an on-prem gal for a long time, I was super nervous about getting patches every quarter. I don't think we could get through it without the assistance of the SI helping us with the patch testing. We just don't have the staff support for that. But the benefits you get, and it's just constant, you know, the new functionality is constantly being turned on. Some of it's really big. Some of it's all new reporting functionality that's coming in the inventory module. And that's, you know, very helpful for us to be able to do more analysis on our purchasing and our procure to pay process. Some of it's so little as now when I approve a vacation, there's a little icon on the bottom with a add this to your calendar. And so my staff and my team now, their vacations automatically get added to my calendar. And so those improvements that are always coming in that are just making your day-to-day transaction activity with the system better is really what the power of those patches come in. Some of the changes are small, some of the changes are big, but it's amazing how they keep transitioning your system and allow you to do more functionality with what you have. And we keep finding that. And Oracle actually also has, you know, you can put in enhancement requests with a community, and then the community will vote on it. And next thing you know, one enhancement you requested from the company is now in there. Oh, now when I hover over the contract name, it also pops out all this other information about the supplier. And so there's always benefits that are coming across the whole board of the system. But again, my users see that power and they keep coming back. I've got always a listing of 40 enhancements to put in the system, which is great. It keeps us greatly employed. But you know, it is always a challenge because the system is always growing and you have to continue to work with that and grow with it. It's not going to be a stagnant system. It's not going to be something where you're going to get tired over time. That's for sure.
I think you mentioned earlier about, you know, your advice was even if you hadn't have had a burning bridge, you would have still gone for, you know, as quickly as possible, because people do get tired, and some organizations just can't consume that much change in a short period of time. So, you know, we have everything from a very quick implementation to much, much longer, and it really does depend on, because organizations don't do this in isolation. But one of the things that happens when you do have implementation fatigue is you tend to just shut up shop and ignore those new things that are coming along. And you don't have to do them on day one, right? But if you don't understand what's coming, then you could miss out on something that's really valuable. And that's one of the things that we do in the managed services, is not just, you know, do that testing for you, not just make sure that it happens, not just look after any faults, but actually think, oh, you know, they've got a challenge in this area. Hey, this new functionality might help, or I think this might be useful for, you know, a certain customer. So as we're seeing this with lots and lots of customers, it's easier for us to point out, here's something that might be useful for you.
Yeah, we've definitely seen that. Inoapps gives us the release notes condensed down. When Oracle comes them out, sends them out, their stereo instructions, they're really long and there's a lot of information. Inoapps takes a first run at them and really drives into us based on our usage and our module footprint. These are the areas that we see that might help you, might be enhancements. But that's not where it stops. You know, they continue to, as we put a ticket in, you know, one of the person will come back and say, hey, don't forget, there's this functionality now. This might be really a help for you. And it is a continuous relationship between the two. And that's why I say they're the roommate that doesn't move out. So yeah, but it is a relationship with your SI that helps you down that. There's just too much information for us to always be seeing. You guys are the expert. You guys are helping us navigate that path and helping us move forward in our enhancement world. And a lot of the enhancements that come on, you have to click. It's literally just a check yes or no. Do you want to accept this? Certainly after we went live for about that first year, we did not take any enhancements because we just really needed to focus in on our original implementation. And of course, you're going to leave some things on a table with any implementation. So we needed to go back those items that were left on the table and really close the loop on our original implementation. One thing I also think I left out was that we did meet a 10% ROI with our implementation, largely taken from the retirement of the other systems that we retired in the licensing costs. I don't know about your world, but in our world, the 10% project, that ROI you do every day. So it doesn't matter if it's you know, putting in a pipeline or doing a back office project. You got 10%, you got the money to go and make it happen. So that's really what, you know, really helped us and drove us to our success. But yeah, that the change does come, but it's really manageable. It seems very daunting, but it is a manageable process to get through it.
And I know when you were talking about your footprint, you talked a lot about the value of the modules all being in one system and, you know, and all integrated. But we did add to the finance and projects and HCM, we did add to that EPM. So EPM sits to one side, but it is integrated and bringing the data both ways. And we then integrated that into P6 as well. So I know that one of the outcomes of that you mentioned before was this much better, you have a much better planning cycle. But you were telling me the other day that you're going to go to the next stage, which is long-term capital forecasting.
Yeah, so we have a really good, nice process driven around our capital forecasting. It's based on percentage of completion. We're using the P6 software to drive that forecast over to PPM and the ERP and over up to EPBCS so that we can do our executive slicing and dicing that we need to do and our external releases out of that system. But we've continued to do the long-term forecasts in Excel. We've been live now roughly 3 years and continue to do that piece in Excel. We've become comfortable enough in the system now. And again, this goes back to the employees are seeing the value in the system and are asking for more functionality. And they realized that, hey, if we just add a couple more fields over here and we send a couple more fields through the interface, we really feel like we can then use the power of the system to drive our reporting for the long-term forecast. And then having scenario ability and all that comes along, the powerfulness that comes along with that. And so that's what we're looking at right now, is taking that next step of putting that extra data through the interface so that we can now have the power of the long-term forecast. And that really just helps us more on a global look of our company and understanding where we're going long-term and being able to run that scenario base that is so powerful for a growing company at all times.
So all of your data you're collecting data much more easily. You know, the systems are integrated. Everybody has access. The data is being collected well. You're now able to, with all the different tools, get to that data more easily. I know as you said, you're looking at analytics as well. But all of this is making your data, it's so much more powerful now. It's not just a collection of what you've done. It's helping you to drive your business as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the power of the system we've really gotten. not only we have better quality data, but we're not doing duplicative entry anymore. We're not entering that data into multiple systems. And then, since there's one center powerful point of truth for all of our data, when we get that reporting out, it's a consistent story, it's a consistent information. We no longer have issues with one department reporting numbers and a different department reporting different numbers. We're pulling the same information, we're living in the same world together, and that's really become powerful in us to enable us to start making business decisions. And of course, now our business is saying, this is great, now I want more. I want to be able to make better business decisions. I want to be able to make more business decisions. And so it's really become a powerful tool in our organization to drive that business organization structure.
Brilliant. So Janie, did you have more questions come in?
Yeah, there's a couple more questions. There's a question about, are you using expense reports through mobile? And if so, what's that process like?
Okay, so now you're going to see my tier number 2. I actually do not have that in right now. It was part of our original scope. We ran into a bug before we went live that prevented us from putting it in. We are currently in the process of reassessing that right now and working on potentially putting in come effective January 1st, because I think the expense tool is fantastic. If you haven't looked at it, you really should. The ability to have your GPS go along with you for mileage is huge. We do a lot of mileage and driving in our company. And then having the expense report, receipt process, all of that is really a really nice tool. So unfortunately, we had to outscope it, but coming soon to an ETRN near you, if you're an ETRN person listening on.
And then there's another question here about implementing the contracts module. They're asking if it was procurement contracts or enterprise contracts module, and have you integrated with DocuSign to capture electronic signatures back into Oracle?
Yes, we have both. We have both sales and purchasing contracts, so we have both sides. We actually also use, for our land contracts, landowner contracts, we use the procurement side, the buy side. So we have both sides. We have 3 different groupings that use the contracts module. The contract is built through the system. It goes through approvals in the system. Once it's complete for internal approvals, it is bumped out to DocuSign straight through our Oracle system. It goes out for DocuSign. It is signed internally, officially, and it's signed externally. And then once that is completed, the completed PDF version comes back into our contract version and lives in our contract version forevermore. So yes, we do have the DocuSign bump out, and it works perfectly fine. It's a good process.
Thank you. That's all the questions for now.
Brilliant. So just a quick word about DocuSign. DocuSign is obviously the leading solution for that, but it's more importantly, it's in Oracle's marketplace. So if you are looking at a third-party product that you want to integrate with Oracle, if you go to Oracle's marketplace and it's there, then that means that the integration is already available for you.
I should say we don't just use it in contracts. We also use it in employee contracts. So when you're going through recruiting process, and then when you sign your final offer letter, and anything else that's contract level based, we use the DocuSign right out of the HR module as well.
And again, that's the value of having one integrated system, that you can then use these things pervasive throughout the whole system. So are there any other questions?
There is another question that's just come in, asking about what percentage of JDE customizations came over into Fusion through pass extensions.
Well, that's a fantastic question. So I had done a number of implementations prior to this implementation and had experienced the complication of living with a system after implementation is highly customized. I really made it an effort, and my senior management team made an effort to make it clear that we wanted as little customization in Oracle as possible. With the patches, we were very concerned about customization. So outside of time and labor time cards, because our employee process is quite custom, our time and labor policies are very custom. There's a lot of customization in there. Outside of that, we brought over almost no customization. We went very out of the box as much as possible, went with the Oracle standard processes. It was definitely a challenge on our organization to change the way they think and change the way they process. There was a lot of work done internally from our team to get through that. But an end product, we really stuck as much as possible to the out-of-the-box Oracle functionality. Again, I realize that's not always possible, but we really did drive that message home. And Inoapps really helped us. You know, I'd say to them, nope, no customization in there. Don't let them do it. They really helped us to get there. You know, Oracle is flexible. It does have a lot of functionality. You know, we sat in a lot of meetings where we're like, do you like it like this or do you like it like that? So there's a lot of levers you can pull and a lot of options you can choose without getting into customization. And so that's really where we drove our implementation to, was using the levers and the options that are available to us as much as possible, but staying in that best practice scope.
So I said at the beginning that I'd worked in, you know, over 100 implementations since these products went live originally, which is over 10 years now. And that's a worry that everybody has, is what about all my customizations? Well, when we start looking at them, there will be a number that are technical, which aren't necessary. So, you know, are you looking at table spaces that might bust at a month end? That's not a problem. That's dealt with by Oracle because they're now hosting your system. There will be a lot that are around reporting, and the way that data comes to you is so different. It's not like in our on-premise apps, we tended to have a lot of lists. So here's the purchase orders that we've created, and we're going to flag any that's over a certain amount. We can have that data pushed to you. You can have a dashboard that will show you what your running rate of purchase orders are. It will highlight ones that are, you know, that you want highlighted. So it pushes that information to you. So they may not be necessary. The configuration is incredibly powerful. So you can configure things that are needed for you. And then you have the ability to extend. So you can't actually, what I would call customize, you cannot go into the code and change the code. You cannot go into the objects and change the objects, but you can extend both inside and out. So we can add extra fields through descriptive text fields. We can have different levels of authorizations depending on how you want to do that. And then we can extend. And extending is done by having an external system like DocuSign. So DocuSign lives, coexists with cloud. But if you need something specific to you or your industry, then that can be written as a standalone application and coexist. So in Inoapps, we have a number of industry applications that are also on Oracle Marketplace, and we already have the integrations for them, and therefore for industry solutions. And then we have some customers who say, hey, we need something, and we will challenge them. Why doesn't the standard work for you? Because that's the best practice. But in my mind, the way I describe it to customers is, if it's your back office, if it's how do I pay an invoice, then it's unlikely that that doesn't meet that you need something different for your industry. But when you're doing something that's specific for your industry, and Tobie gave the example there of, you know, how they run their time and labor, because basically that's what their industry is about, then it makes sense that you might need an extension of some kind, because you're actually using the system for a very unique part of your business. And we see it all the time, and it can be done. It's just done in a different way. It's a different approach than you would have had on your on-premise applications.
Yeah, there are going to be some times too where you run into areas where the system doesn't quite operate the way you need to. I'll give an example for us, retainage. Retainage on our construction projects is a normal everyday concept for us. Oracle does not handle it the way we wanted it to handle it. And that's okay. I guess that's pretty typical because, you know, we talked to Inoapps, we're like, hey, we do this thing called retainage, and they're like, great. Oracle's probably not going to work exactly the way you want it to work because self-constructed assets are not really a normal concept for most businesses. Most businesses construct a widget and sell it. So we're going to put some technology out on PaaS, which is your ability to bump out within the cloud. And, you know, we're going to put it in a custom process in PaaS. We're going to bump the retainage out to PaaS. We'll handle it over there. We'll send it back over to the supply chain purchase order and for your GL, and it will work fine. So you're going to find places where, you know, Oracle is an ERP, so it's not going to be exactly perfect at everything, but there is the functionality there to be able to support the customization that you need to do in a bump out, still within your cloud environment, still within your cloud circle, so you don't have to worry about those integrations and that passing of data.
And Oracle keep on making that easier and easier. And your end user won't know that you've left the system back in again.
No, my end users have no idea that they bumped out.
Yeah. So we've got one last question then, which is asking, you're assessing the analytics. Are you using any third-party reporting at the moment?
Right now we have a global data warehouse. We have Tableau that we use off of that. So we do have functionality. A lot of our data that's in the EPM modules and the ERP module ends up in our data warehouse. We do have other systems and other, you know, data points that we need to merge our data with. So we use a lot of that so that we can cross-system, cross-functionally use it. So that's what we're using at this point. And it's working fine. I think that what the analytics, the power of the analytics is the out-of-the-box functionality that comes with not having to develop those connectors, not having to develop those pictorials, those graphics, those drill downs, that coming out of the box is really where the power of it that I see. I could spend a lot of time and get my data warehouse and Tableau up to speed and getting that built out for myself, or I can shortcut it and just go by the analytics and then already have it built out. So that's really where.
Yeah, and as we said, it's not a one-off, because if you get all of that, you know, continuous innovation, you'd have to keep on making those changes. Whereas in the Fusion Analytics Warehouse, each of those is going to, you know, come with its punch out to the, with its flow to the data warehouse.
Yes.
Okay, so we've whizzed through the time here, which is fantastic, and it's great to have had questions. I think, you know, if I sum that up, this was a major transformation, not just the system, but the organization. You know, it was a new company, and not just a spin-off doing the same thing they'd always been doing. It was a new company, new things to do. They selected Oracle, they selected Inoapps, and I hope that you heard several times you mentioned that we've done a good job. But then that need to get everything going as soon as possible, because the organization was then left orphaned, and all of the things that they've done additionally, and then how as their managed service provider, that we're not just helping with those quarterly releases, but also the innovation that they want to pick up and that they want to look at in the future. So I think it's a fantastic story. As I say, a fantastic customer. I love a customer that sits back and sees what they've achieved and then shares that. But if we finish now, Tobie, is there anything you'd like to say to finish off?
No, just embrace the journey. You know, it is a whole new world for your employees, for your organization, and embrace it. you're going down a change that you probably won't do too many times in your lifetime if you're from the business side. And so really get ready for a lot of change management, get ready for a lot of internal sales. It's really energizing and an exciting project to be involved in, and really being able to drive value for your customers, that being your internal employees, is very rewarding. So I wish you the best of luck on your journey, and I hope you have a good time at it, because it's a great experience to go through.
Thank you so much, Tobie, and thank you, John. As we said, is that if you came on this webcast, if you wanted to have a look at the things you should be considering when you're looking at a move to cloud, then I'll happily do a session with your organisation, just some of the things that you should consider when deciding to move to cloud. So thank you all very much for joining us today. Thanks again to the two speakers, and any questions, just ask Inoapps. Thank you.